Today was a monumental loss for prosecutors in the Diddy case.
It's been just 1 week since Diddy was taken into custody, and already the headlines are spiraling out of control. From the courtroom to the jailhouse, this first week has been anything but quiet. Diddy, or Sean Combs, is trying every legal and public relations trick in the book to secure his freedom before his October sentencing, but it's not working. His legal team has already begun the spin campaign. Gone is the bad boy for life bravado. Now they want to rebrand him as a misunderstood, family-oriented, rehabilitated man. But that makeover might be too little, too late. One of the most explosive revelations this week came not from a lawyer, but from Diddy's former chef, Jordan Atkinson, a respected celebrity chef in her own right. Jordan went live on Instagram and blew the lid off the behind-the-scenes chaos. She was flown in to testify, but then, shockingly, the prosecution pulled her just minutes before she was scheduled to take the stand. According to her, they were focusing on the wrong narrative. "No one cares about the women he beat," she said bluntly. "They care about how he treated employees and the powerful executives behind the scenes." Atkinson claimed she was both a witness and a victim of Diddy's violent outbursts, including being physically assaulted herself. But what's more disturbing is her allegation that Diddy's legal team reached out to her before her first federal interview offering legal services in what she interpreted as witness tampering. Jordan wasn't involved in the infamous freak-offs, but had accused Diddy of brutal treatment during her employment. She said she was terrified when Diddy's lawyers contacted her asking how they even knew she was cooperating with the feds. Her account, if presented in court, could have tied the abuse to a broader criminal enterprise, bolstering the now-dismissed RICO charge. Her removal from the witness list left many wondering why choose Jane over Jordan when Jordan had no romantic connection and far less motive for bias. The public reaction to Diddy's split verdict has been intense. While he was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking, he was still convicted of 2 federal counts related to the Mon Act. That should have been enough to land him bail after all. Prostitution charges alone don't typically warrant mandatory detention. But Diddy's own defense team undermined him. They admitted in court that their client was violent. Coupled with letters from Cassie and Chef Jordan warning the judge that they feared for their safety, the court refused bail. The judge pointed to Diddy's own words and actions, including documented incidents of violence, as the reason for denying his release until sentencing. Behind the scenes, though, things are heating up. Bookmakers around the world are taking bets not just on how long Diddy will serve, but how long it will take him to land back in jail if he's ever released. Despite the potential for a lighter sentence of 2 to 3 years, some believe Diddy's arrogance will land him back behind bars even if he gets out. His past behavior, unapologetic and volatile, makes it hard to believe he'll stay out of trouble. And like R. Kelly and John Gotti before him, Diddy may end up being his own worst enemy. Meanwhile, civil lawsuits are coming fast and hard. While one case brought by April Lampro was recently dismissed due to the statute of limitations, her attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, has already stated he intends to depose Diddy within 60 days. Blackburn, along with attorneys like Tony Busby, is analyzing every misstep made by federal prosecutors during the trial, preparing to bring a wave of civil litigation that could destroy what's left of Diddy's empire. The civil threshold, just 51% certainty, is far lower than criminal court. And now that Diddy has been convicted on federal sex-related offenses, those cases are easier to win. At the same time, Diddy's own children are drawing attention. His son Christian jetted off to Jamaica after the verdict, while his twin daughters, recently turned 18, announced plans to launch a clothing line named 1221 The Internet. Immediately noticed the brand name was identical to that of an existing Black-owned label. Some critics accused the Combs camp of trying to launder Diddy's reputation and finances through his children. As forfeiture looms over his assets, While the girls themselves may be innocent, people are questioning the shady business practices surrounding them, likely inherited from Diddy's old playbook. Diddy's legal team, led by attorney Mark Agnafilo, is trying to soften his image. They've dressed him like a Harvard grad, emphasized his role as a father, cited his charity work, and pointed to his stints in rehab. But those efforts are running up against years of documented violence and intimidation. Diddy wasn't just accused of hurting romantic partners. He allegedly attacked a wedding guest, physically assaulted music executive Steve Stout, and even stormed into the Vibe offices when he didn't like a magazine cover. These aren't isolated incidents, they're a pattern. And if that wasn't wild enough, reports surfaced that Diddy might try to record music from behind bars, potentially teaming up with none other than Kanye West. Legally, it's possible. Artists like Suge Knight have recorded podcasts from jail, but aligning with Kanye, who's been mired in his own controversies, might backfire on a man desperately trying to restore his public image. Even the swinger community, yes, really is distancing themselves. Organizations have issued statements saying they don't want to be associated with Diddy's infamous freak-off parties. It's a bizarre but telling moment. Even among alternative lifestyles, Diddy's reputation is radioactive. The idea that his behavior has poisoned the cultural perception of consensual adult activity shows just how toxic his name has become. At the end of the day, Diddy's $400 million fortune is under siege. Court testimony revealed that he used company Money Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Global, and other entities to finance escort services and illegal activities. That opens the door for federal forfeiture, meaning his businesses and assets are fair game. His team is allegedly scrambling to transfer assets to his children, with daughters launching fashion lines and sons taking over music production credits. But the wave of upcoming civil lawsuits may be too overwhelming to dodge. While Diddy may have escaped the harshest criminal charges, the public narrative is shifting. Survivors are speaking out, the civil courts are gearing up, and the culture at large is no longer willing to excuse decades of unchecked power and abuse. Whether Diddy spends 2 years behind bars or 20, his grip on fame and fortune is loosening fast. And for many, it started like any other day in court, but everyone could feel it was different. The air had a strange weight to it, like something was coiled. Just out of sight, ready to snap, Sean Diddy Combs walked in through the side door like he always did, flanked by his legal team, suited and muted gray head up, but something about him looked off, not panicked, not afraid, just unsettled. His eyes scanned the room a little longer than usual, pausing briefly on the jury box, then over at the prosecution's table. They weren't looking back at him. That was the first signal. They weren't posturing, weren't preparing. They were waiting, calm, silent, like hunters who already knew the animal was cornered. The judge entered. 5 minutes later, no small talk, no half smiles, just a nod to the clerk, a glance at both tables, and a few quiet words that made the entire gallery lean forward. This session will begin with a motion submitted under seal defense. I trust you've reviewed the materials as instructed. Diddy's lead attorney stood, visibly thrown off. Your Honor, we received a digital notice late last night, but we were under the impression. The judge cut him off. Impressions don't override deadlines. The prosecution may proceed. The entire room shifted, not dramatically, but precisely the kind of shift that happens when everyone in the room except one man knows what's coming. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now let's get back to it. A cart was wheeled in with a mounted screen facing the jury. No witness took the stand. No new face entered. Just the screen and a black USB drive inserted by a court technician. Under the judge's nod, the lights dimmed slightly, the screen flickered, and then the first line of text appeared, dated, time-stamped, encrypted, origin traced to a device listed under a foreign corporate shell once tied to Diddy's music label subsidiary. The line read, "If this gets out, we're finished." No context, no sender, just that the courtroom didn't react at first. They didn't need to because all eyes, every single one, were now fixed on Diddy. He didn't blink, but he didn't breathe either. Another message appeared, then another, a thread of conversations between anonymous accounts, each with careful phrasing, vague references, and time tags that lined up with moments already brought up in testimony. The names were redacted, but the intent wasn't. The messages didn't scream guilt. They whispered something worse: planning, strategy, cover-up. Diddy's attorney rose to object. Citing unclear authentication, the prosecution handed over the blockchain verification receipts and international verification stamps. The judge accepted them into the sealed record without pause. By this point, Diddy's posture had changed. He wasn't leaning back anymore. He was sitting forward, one hand on his chin, eyes locked on the screen, like he was scanning every line for something familiar, something he hoped wasn't there. The next message hit harder. It was shorter, sharper, more specific. Shut it down before the feds ask questions. That was it. The room held its breath, and he didn't flinch, but he no longer looked confident. He looked like a man staring at something he thought was buried, something that had just clawed its way back to the surface. The courtroom wasn't moving, but the energy inside it was shifting fast, like the room itself had suddenly turned into a tunnel, pulling everything toward one inescapable point. The screen kept flashing message after message, each one more precise, more surgical. They weren't threats, they were instructions. A time-stamped log showed a conversation referencing an external contractor being paid in full offshore. The defense team scrambled. One lawyer whispered furiously to another, shaking her head. Another grabbed a legal pad and started writing in all caps. Diddy didn't look at them. He was still watching the screen, jaw clenched so tight you could see the muscle twitching in his cheek. Then came the line that cracked the silence wide open. Same night, same name, package moved, no leaks. The courtroom froze. The prosecution didn't explain. They didn't need to. The jury had already heard testimony days earlier about that same night, about a missing security footage file, about a guest list that had one name removed the morning after. Now it all had context. One juror visibly recoiled. Another took a slow breath, like they were processing just how deep this thing really went. And across the room, the judge sat still, expression unreadable but no longer casual. He was leaning forward now, elbows on the bench, fingers laced, eyes narrowed directly on Diddy. The defense objected. Again, Your Honor, this isn't courtroom procedure. Says ambush. But the judge's response was like a verdict in itself. You had access to this material and chose not to explore it. This court will not shelter oversight masquerading as strategy. That one line sucked the air out of the defense table. Diddy finally moved just slightly. He sat back, rubbed his chin once, then stared down at the table, not defeated, not panicking, just calculating, like a man trying to mentally trace the chain of events that brought him to this exact moment, and realizing the math wasn't in his favor. The next message sealed it. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a directive, a full plan run. The sweep: kill the server, deny knowledge if it leaks, and it was dated the exact night before the federal subpoena was issued. Now the courtroom wasn't just tense, it was alive, buzzing, charged, moments away from combustion. One of the prosecutors leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and just waited, like she knew this wasn't the climax. It was the warm-up. The judge glanced at the bailiff. Secure the exhibit, he said. Seal it immediately. Motion for obstruction is now on the table. Diddy looked up slowly, straight at the judge, and in that split second, something passed between them. Not words, not accusations, but recognition. Diddy wasn't facing allegations anymore. It's facing the truth, and the room knew it. The room had changed, not just the tone, not just the pace, but the very atmosphere. It felt heavier, denser, like something unspoken. Now sitting in the center of the courtroom, and everyone was circling at the judge. Didn't speak again right away. He didn't have to. His eyes had done enough, and Diddy hadn't looked away. That brief stare between him and the bench had said it all. But what came next was something no one in that room expected. The prosecution didn't call a witness. They submitted a name. One name. It was typed on a single piece of paper, passed to the clerk, entered into the sealed record. Then a quiet motion was made to allow admission of corroborating evidence tied to previous sealed messages. The judge reviewed it. Took less than a minute. He nodded, and that's when the projection changed again. This time, it wasn't just messages. It was a transaction, a wire from a dummy corporation based in the Cayman Islands to a private consultant listed under an alias that had been flagged but never confirmed until now. The prosecutor read the final 4 digits of the recipient account, then turned to the jury. Those digits match the confidential financial statements submitted last week by the defense themselves, she said. Voice steady, quiet, devastating. The same account number your team insisted didn't exist. The defense stood. Objection. Irregular, inflammatory, prejudicial. The judge simply held up a hand, overruled the evidence, is admissible. The court has confirmed the chain of custody at the defense table. Deed's team was unraveling and real. Time files were shuffled, phones buzzed under the desk. A junior associate reached over and whispered something directly into Diddy's ear. He didn't react, didn't nod, didn't blink, just kept staring at the screen like he was watching